All right, everybody, welcome back into Pro Football Enterprises. I am Ben Parker. We're doing the Houston Texans tonight, and it's going to be a little bit sloppy because I'm going to be probably doing two or three different scenarios, things I'm trying to work on. So, welcome in. Let's talk about their needs real quick, and then let's get to the action. Okay, so PFS in. I've got their mock simulator pulled up. I'll pull up another one later, but they've got their Houston Texans needs listed as offensive tackle, offensive guard, defensive tackle, running back, linebacker. I assume running back wouldn't still be up there after the David Montgomery trade. They just haven't updated that. I'm fairly close to that when it comes to needs. I'm at guard, center, or right tackle. Any two of those three. I really am looking for two offensive linemen here. Linebacker three, I would love to add some good depth back in at linebacker and defensive tackle. I would love to add a defensive tackle, just a good guy right, right up the middle, a younger guy, stout guy. I would really enjoy that too, and also a flexible defensive back, a DB3, something like that. Uh, Obviously, Houston's got a good defensive backfield, but I feel like they could use another flexible guy back there, even if he just gets to be a rotational piece. I really think that would help. So anyway, that's roughly, not even necessarily in that order. Offensive line probably my biggest concern here, but that's roughly the things I would be looking to attack if I were the Houston Texans. And of course, free agency will change some of that. Always does. So stay tuned after free agency. We're doing this before free agency. Okay, so what I've got here, I've got PFSN pulled up, and I haven't even started the simulation to the Houston's pick. What I want to do is look at trading up. Okay. And, a lot of people like to talk about trading back all the time as if there's something cute or sexy or just smarter about it. But for every trade up, there's got to be somebody trading back. For every trade back, it's got to be a trade up. In this case, and I'm going to illustrate a little bit right here. I'm a little worried that if I sit back there at 28, the tackles I'm interested in are gone. Okay. Uh, there's a chance a couple of left tackles could be sitting back there. And there's a chance that there's a right tackle that I don't really like all that good could be sitting there. So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma right here. So let's talk about through it real quick here. Francis Mawanoa, I've got him top 10. They've got him, number five right here, but he's going to be long gone by pick 28. I figure he's long gone by pick 20 as well, even if we were trade up there. And I am going to explore a trade to pick 20. Spencer Fano out of Utah. That's a good right tackle that I really like. I've got him top 10 on my big board. Other people don't quite have him as high. You can find him lower than that over on PFSN. You can find him as low as 20. I really don't think Spencer Fano is going to be sitting there at pick 20. And again, I'll mention that specific number here in a second. Now, a lot of people like Monroe Freeling. I'm probably trailing behind in that category. But again, if you like him, he's a left tackle, right? So that's a bit of a problem. Caden Proctor could be sitting there anywhere from pick 20 to 28. That would not surprise me. And I love Caden Proctor's attributes and talent, but boy, the tape is sloppy and messy and at times ugly. And considering how close this Houston team is with everywhere else in the roster, I kind of hate to add a guy like Proctor into this mix and be waiting for him to develop in order for the team to kind of take off. So I'm a little hesitant about that. I'm not above doing that, but I'm a little hesitant about that. Caleb Lemieux is another guy I like right here out of Utah, but again, he's left tackle. So, we're not really necessarily looking for left tackle. We're looking for right, and I kind of hate to switch him over. Blake Miller is a guy that a lot of people like. I don't have him this high. I've got him all the way back at like 60 or 70, and that's because I don't like his pass blocking. His run blocking is fine. I don't like his pass blocking. He plays extremely high, and he really, really struggles with edge rushers, and I really hate to plug in a right tackle on this Houston Texans offensive line that, in my opinion, having studied the tape, really struggles in stopping edge rushers. So I don't want to do that. One other great choice I think would be is Max Ionature, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, out of Arizona State. I do like that. So if we were to stick and pick at 28, for me personally, more than likely, top choice Ionature out of Arizona State. So let's explore just a little bit real quick here. If we were to try to propose a trade, I picked 20 for a reason. Dallas Cowboys happen to be the ones who own the 20th pick, but they've got two first rounders, so they might be willing to trade back in theory. We could offer 28, of course. I believe it's 59. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think we can get it for 69. 59, 69. You can take your pick. For 28 and 69, we could move up to 20 with Dallas and maybe put ourselves maybe in the ballpark of a Lemieux and maybe a Proctor, who both might not be sitting there at 28. So you've got to like one of those guys and you've got to think, hey, maybe they're still sitting there. So this is where the draft, even if you've done your homework on the guys you like, right? This is where the draft gets to be a guessing game. And you're like, hey, we don't want to move up too far. We want to move up to maybe 20 with Dallas, and we want to try to get Lemieux or Proctor sitting there right at 20. Are they even going to be there? And so then you have to decide, well, do we put a trade with Dallas in place, which is what a lot of teams do? Do we just put that trade in place? And then if our guy is sitting there at 20, and if Dallas is still open to doing the deal at 20, then we pull the trigger on the guy we like. Certainly, that's an option that we can explore. Now, let me undo this here. I'm going to get really aggressive here. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm really, really worried about Houston's offensive line. I really want this thing to get better. I also realize that Houston's got a very good roster going on right now. One of the best defenses in football, just tremendous. And several answers on the offensive side of the football and plenty of draft picks to work with. So for those reasons, I'm really interested in this year in trading up very high. So let's pick out the Washington Commanders. Why Washington? Well, to begin with, they're at pick number 7. But the other reason is Washington doesn't have a lot of draft picks right now. I think it's 4 or 5. They don't have a second round pick. I think they don't pick between 70 and 71. If I remember right, it's a huge gap. And then they don't pick again between like pick 70 and 140 something, right? So Washington might be interested, especially if the guy they really want, the defensive player they really want, isn't sitting there at 7. The Commanders could be open to trading back and trying to fill up a lot of holes on their roster. So let's explore that right now. Washington Commanders will toss in pick 7, hour 38. This ain't gonna be cheap, y'all. Okay, I know y'all know that, but I'm just gonna remind you, this ain't gonna be cheap. Okay, I believe the deal I had worked out. I ran through it before. Thinking, no, it's not 170. Let's see. That puts us close, I think. Yeah, let me see if I can do that. All right. I think that was the way it had to be right there. 28, 38, and 69. But we could get back. Let's try this. Yeah, but I believe that's as good as we can get right there. Okay, so we give up 28, 38, and 69. We get pick 7, and then we get a couple of other lower picks back, 146 and 222. So that's very expensive. And I normally would not want to do this kind of a deal. There are a few teams that I would, and a lot of teams I would not do this deal for. But I really do feel like Houston needs offensive line help. It's their number one need to me by far. And yes, we could grab a right tackle still sitting there at 28. I'll explore that here in a minute. And we could kind of, work our way through the draft and just stick and pick where we are. Totally open to that. But let's take a look at the aggressive approach and see what it gets us here, okay? Let me go ahead and propose that. All right, so that trade was accepted. I'm going to go ahead and start the draft. We're now sitting here at number 7, okay? So let me start the draft up. We're being offered something here by the Lions. We're not going to take that because we traded up for a reason. So sitting here, obviously there's still some good defensive players right here. Francis Mauigoa is Mauigoa, sorry, sitting here. And this particular website has Spencer Fano sitting back there at 20. I think that's too low on him. I don't think he's going to be there at 20. If I did, I'd sit there at 20 and wait for him. I just don't think he's going to be there. Now, heads up, Spencer Fano, tremendous athleticism and tremendous at run blocking. There are slight rumors about people wanting to shift him over to center, and that's fine. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm looking for a right tackle. So basically, though, we've got our choice here by trading up to number 7. And I don't know that this will happen, but there's a very good chance that at least one of these right tackles, high end, blue chip, if you will, right tackles will be sitting here if we were to trade up to number 7, which again is expensive. I don't expect Houston to do that, but they've done things like that before. So Francis Mawanoa sitting here at number 11 and Spencer Fano sitting here at number 20. If you've got other thoughts, drop them in the chat. I probably won't see them myself, but other people who watch this video will. So if it's me, we're picking Spencer Fano. I know a lot of people would prefer Francis Mawanoa. That's fine too. So here's how we're going to go ahead and play this. Having done the trade up, we're going to take Spencer Fano. So here's what that leaves us. We got aggressive. We picked out the tackle that I wanted. So our offensive line, in theory, has already been helped. I would love to add a second interior offensive lineman, guard, center. Don't even care. Again, we might pick up one of those guys in free agency. We still have a lot of picks. They're not as high picks, but again, our roster is so good. I'm comfortable with that. Pick 59, going to do right now, 106, and then several more after that. So let's get back to it. I'm going to go straight to offensive guard. Right here's a guy I really like, Jennings Dunker. I don't mind him at right tackle, but a lot of people have already projected him over at guard. I would be more than happy to take him right here. Coming out of Iowa, go check out his tape. He struggles to some degree in pass blocking, but he holds up. That's important. He holds up. So I like that, like his run blocking. And over here at center, Parker Brailsford is fine. The guy I'm in love with is Connor Lew. Okay. So given my choice, and since I'm the one doing it tonight, Connor Lew, offensive center out of Auburn. You talk about a guy, not great athleticism. Okay. I'm not going to pump the guy, but straight ahead, bulldozer, point of attack, open lanes to his left or his right. Auburn did a great job running the ball right to his left or right, constantly up the middle against very good defenses at the SEC level. So that's where I'm going to go here. Real quick, just in case you're wondering, well, what else is there? All right, so here's some of the names that are sitting there in this scenario. I said my other needs might be a CB3 or just a very flexible defensive back. I don't see anything sitting there that I have to have. Defensive tackle, I said as well. I do like Daryl Jackson and Dominique Orange, but we may be able to catch one of them at 106. It's possible, okay? So keep that in mind. And linebacker, a third linebacker for depth. Jake Golday is very tempting here, but the offensive line is the bigger need, so that's where I'm going to go. And again, some of you may like Jennings Dunker. That's fine. I like him too. I'm going to go straight to center, Connor Lew, who I love way better than 78. That's going to be what we're going to do, okay? All right, pick 106 sitting here again. We've hit double offensive line. That's on purpose. That's not an accident. I wasn't playing the board and waiting to see kind of best player available. I'm the Houston Texans. Again, I'm looking for offensive linemen to help. Sitting right there. There it is. So there's my center. There's my right tackle. Blake Fisher can kick inside the guard. In theory now, I've got a young offensive line, but I like the direction it's going. Okay. So I don't have to have any more offensive linemen. If there's one sitting there, best player available, I will still take another offensive lineman. Okay. Let's move on here. What else? Linebacker 3, flex defensive back, defensive tackle. And I still like Dante Corleone as well and Rashawn Benny. The defensive tackles I really want that are gone. There's some decent linebackers right here. Nobody I'm thrilled with, though. Aiden Fisher, Harold Perkins, Tarian York, Kyle Lewis, Caleb Elam's or all 5 of those guys offer something that I can work with, but I don't have to have that. Let's look at the defensive backs. Chandler Rivers is probably the guy I would go for right here. Let's check around a little bit. Again, I'm zipping through because I'm going to get to another scenario here in a second on a different simulator. We don't need wide receiver. We are loaded at wide receiver as far as I'm concerned. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Chandler Rivers from Duke is a guy that I have rated higher than this, but again, I like him. Not the tallest guy, but holds up in pass coverage, and I do think he has the flexibility to move around the defense a little bit, even though he didn't do that a lot at Duke. I think he has that flexibility. So, CB not our biggest need, but I would love for us to kind of mix in the depth there. So, Chandler Rivers coming on board here. We still have, after our trade, 5 picks left. We're at 145. Jaysean Barham would be a great add-on right here. Let's hit defensive tackle. Rayshawn Benny sitting right here. I don't know that he needs to be picked 145, but I may go ahead and grab him before somebody else does. I don't necessarily feel like I want to add another defensive back at this point. I'll tell you what I think I'm going to do. We've got 2 back-to-back picks here. I'm going to pick Caleb Elarms or linebacker out of Texas Christian. The tape is pretty good. It's just fine for this selection level. But then, of course, you add in he did really good at the combine. So those are all flags pointing in the right direction for me. So let's add him on right here. There's our linebacker depth, hopefully. And then defensive tackle, Rayshawn Benny, I believe is where I'm going to go. But real quick, let's check that I have any more offensive positions. No. Let's check guard out real quick. We've already got a center. So here we go. This is probably a little bit early for Rayshawn Benny, but I am concerned somebody else is going to grab him. So I'm going to take him now since I want him. All right, our turn to pick again, 166. Did I do a linebacker yet? I did do a linebacker. I've got a defensive back. We got so many picks. We were able to do a lot of different things here. Just showing you kind of what's here for right now, real quick. And on offense, Coleman, Slaughter, Hemby. All right, let's go back to defense. I'm going to add in another edge rusher, Romello Height out of Texas Tech. Tape is fun. He's obviously slipped from where he was a few weeks ago, but we're going to add in Romello Heights just to give us more edge rushers coming off the bench. He will not start for us. That's, for at least 2 seasons, he will not start for us, but this is a guy that would add depth off the bench at rotational edge rusher. And let's see, I've got 2 linebackers sitting right here, so there's really no reason we can't go ahead and add another one. I'm sure that's the one I want. Yeah, I'm going to take Bryce Betcher right here out of Oregon. Betcher really flies around, hits hard. I like that. I think he would work out well. So again, we're building back up our linebacker depth. These guys might not even play year 1, depending on health and everything. So when you call it depth out of a 5th or 6th round draft pick, they might not play year 1, but they are guys that should have enough talent to work their way into rotational, and then maybe year 2 or 3 might be a starter possibly. Last pick here, real quick. If you see somebody that you wanted us to take, go ahead and let me know. I'm adding in Dan Villari, tight end out of Syracuse. And that'll finish it up. Okay. So this was the aggressive route. I'm going to take you on a different route here in just a second, but this is the aggressive one. Spencer Fano out of Utah, Connor Lew, center out of Auburn. We added Chandler Rivers, cornerback out of Duke. We added not 1 but 2 linebackers with Elarms, and Betcher. We added a defensive tackle in Rayshawn Benny. We added an edger in height, Dan Villaro. Height, Villari, and Betcher, those are all best player available picks. Those were not needs per se. These other picks were need based. Okay. That was the aggressive approach. Let's decide. Let's take another look here. Different site. Let's just stick and pick here. Mock draft database. Got a couple trade offers. I'm going to ignore those for tonight. Let's go straight to offensive tackle. What's actually sitting here? A lot of them are gone. Okay, so now that leaves Blake Miller and Max Ionature. I love Ionature. I don't love Blake Miller. If you could give me Blake Miller back in the third round, which he's not going to be there, but if you could, I'd feel okay about it. I'm just not happy with the pass blocking here. Ionature still could use some more seasoning. I get it. And that's one reason I argued against picking Caden Proctor, because Proctor, too, very sloppy, got some things going on. But again, we're not trading up for Proctor. We're sitting here and picking Max Ionature. So that's what I'm going to do right here. I will do a quick check here on interior offensive lineman. Quick check on, well, that includes the centers as well. So there it is. Now, what that leaves us with, my selections here, we still have a bunch more picks because we didn't trade them away. So we've still got pick 38. I can come right back and get the next best offensive lineman if I want to. I've got a lot more flexibility, right? I may not have had the best player, but I've got a lot more flexibility. Let's do this. I didn't add him in the last round. I know Blake Miller's sitting there, but I've already got my right tackle, and I'm not a Miller fan, unfortunately. I live 25 minutes from where he played his college days. Just wasn't thrilled with him at the top 40 level. Let's go ahead and add on Jennings Dunker here. I will do a real quick check and see what else is out there. Actually, you know what? Screw that. I'm switching gears. We could use defensive tackle. Caleb Banks is sitting right here. I love Caleb Banks. I love his highlights. I love his top 10 potential. There are plays where he looks like top 10. There's also a bit of an injury history where he missed a lot of games, and I mean a lot. And then there's also some effort questions. So I don't know how that's going to play in Houston. Maybe they've run the interviews on him and maybe they've taken him off their board completely. I don't know. If they have, that's fine. I didn't interview Caleb Banks. All right. I just like the tape. So having already got the tackle that we wanted, we're going to go ahead and pick up Caleb Banks here. Very high ceiling. Goodness gracious. Extremely high ceiling. But there are some questions. Let's take Caleb Banks. Well, I already mentioned linebacker depth. Anthony Hill's good enough to be a starter, in my opinion. Hits well, moves well, athleticism good, solid in the run game, can contribute to some degree in pass coverage, and can get to the quarterback some. Not really a top 20 prospect kind of a guy, but boy, just right after that, Anthony Hill, I think, would fit in perfectly with Houston. I'll real quick let you check and see what else is sitting here. Jennings Dunker is still sitting there. I know a lot of you would love Jacob Rodriguez. That's what else is sitting there. Again, for time's sake, let's add in Anthony Hill. Getting some trade offers. I'll bypass those for the night. So what have we done? Max Ionature at tackle. That allows us to move Blake Fisher inside, right? And we still would need a center. I've got centers coming. Caleb Banks at defensive tackle. I would love, listen, if Caleb Banks were to be a hit, then, Houston might be looking at one of the best defenses of all time. Even if he doesn't, you still have a very good defense. You had one last year without him, right? Anthony Hill coming in as linebacker. Anthony Hill's good enough to start right away. Maybe not necessarily for Houston, considering they're already pretty good at linebacker, but Anthony Hill could get a lot of playing time right away. And then as you start having to pay guys, Anthony Hill could be the guy that steps up into a starting role and you don't pay somebody else on this defense, right? So that's always important to pipeline as much as you can. What am I looking at here? Interior offensive lineman. Excuse me. I've got a couple of guys here. Connor Lew, we already mentioned him. Sam Hesh is a guy to remember out of Kansas State. Just to do something different. Let's see where our selections are. Shoot, 106. I kind of hate to wait. I'm afraid if I wait, he's not going to be there. Look at best player available real quick. There are guys, plenty of guys here I like, not a lot that I love. So I'm going to do something that the website's not going to like because they hand out grades on this stuff, but I don't care. Anyway, actually, they did suggest it. Yeah. Sam Heck coming in. We're going to move him to center for we're going to move him from Kansas State to us. He's going to play center for us. Like a lot of the Kansas State offensive linemen, technically sound, physical, comes to play, and has a fairly good athletic range. Not elite. That's why he's down here. But again, I like this. So what have we done here by just sticking and picking? We've got Ian Nature at tackle, Banks at defensive tackle, Hill at linebacker, Sam Hesh. Again, compare that over here with what we got. We've got a higher end, more elite level offensive tackle. We do have a lower defensive tackle. We've got a CB, we've got a center. I think the center is better over here. So you got trade-offs going on here, depending on what you want to do. Next pick. Yeah, I tell you what I think I'm going to do right here. I'll let you look and see the board real quick. I'm going to check out defensive back because we haven't done that yet, right? Devin Moore's a guy to keep an eye on. Okay, let's get down and do it. Where did I say where we're at? Yeah, defensive tackle. Daryl Jackson, I mentioned him earlier, but we didn't talk about him. This guy's going to be a real pain in the butt in the run game. So what I can do here, I've got two defensive tackles that I've added in. One is a really high ceiling guy, and Caleb Banks. The other guy is just an absolute thumper, a real stick up the middle in terms of stopping the run game. So I've helped out our defensive tackle interior. We still have several more picks on this. I probably won't make all of them because I do want to introduce one more thing to y'all tonight. And let's see, did I already add a cornerback in this scenario? I did not. So let's look at them. There's two guys here I like. I'm going to take Hezekiah Massis. All right. Massis, pretty good cover guy coming out of California. I like that. Let's add that on. Looking back at my needs, guard, center, tackle, linebacker, flex, defensive back, defensive tackle. When you have this many picks and this few in needs, honestly, it's not hard to kind of cover all the needs. How many offensive linemen have I got so far? I've got two. I'm not above adding a third here. It's pretty desperate right here. J.C. Davis, offensive tackle from Illinois, I would very strongly consider. They've got running back still showing, but again, this simulator probably has not accounted for the David Montgomery trade. Have we done a linebacker yet under this scenario? Yeah, we already hit Anthony Hill. All right, I'm going to do it, y'all. We've got this many picks. We're obviously going to duplicate some positions. I'm going to add in J.C. Davis, offensive tackle from Illinois. Maybe he never starts for us, but still, we're pipelining in youth and talent, and Houston Texans need that. And this kind of draft kind of sets up for that. You know, if we're looking to add decent pieces, it's sitting right there. We are all the way down at what? Pick 242. So we're getting near the end here. Tanner Koziol out of Houston, Texas would not be a bad pick for tight end. Draft really falls off at this point. There are names here that I'd be interested in, but nothing that I have to have. So let's go back up and do it. I'm going to grab the tight end, Tanner Koziol out of Houston. And we have one more pick. Is that what we're looking at? Yeah, this is our last pick. Any number of ways we can go. I kind of hate to go the running back route. But let's do it. Jamari Taylor coming out of Virginia. I know we don't necessarily need that since we added Montgomery, but one of the best players available. Okay, so you can see the grades here. Obviously, we picked a lot of positions they recommended, close to levels they recommended, so they liked that. That's why we're getting good grades. I really don't care about the grades, but just comparing, you can see we didn't get as good of a tackle prospect, but we still got one sitting there at 28. I think we got a much better defensive tackle prospect in terms of ceiling than what we got on the other mock. And we still added a run stopping defensive tackle right here. Linebacker, we added, I think, a better linebacker. Sam Hecht, to me, is not far behind. In fact, some websites have him better than Connor Lew. I don't, but Sam Hecht here would not be a bad choice. I don't think Hezekiah Massis is as good as Chandler Rivers myself. That's who we got on the other mock. But we get more picks this way. All right, I'm going to X out of that. Let's do a little restart here on this one. The one last thing I wanted to work y'all through. Again, this is the kind of things that you have to, and all the NFL teams have to do this. You have to work out these scenarios, and that's a lot of fun. Where is Houston at? Okay, enter solo draft. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to go ahead and work out that trade that I mentioned earlier with the Dallas Cowboys. Again, why Dallas? Because they have 2 first-round picks, right? So they might be more willing to part with one of them at a reasonable price than some of these other teams who they've only got 1 first-round pick. So that's why the Cowboys. 28 and 20. I'm going to get real crazy here, y'all. I didn't even think about this. Let's try 38 to 20. Yeah, I tell you what. Look at that. Okay. I didn't even plan this, but and again, the simulators aren't always dead on what a team would actually do, but they do try this. All the simulators try to count draft value points so that they're roughly equal. So we'll stick with that tonight. We give up pick 38. We give up pick 59. We give up 106. We get 20 back and we get 151 back. So we lose 1 pick in terms of how many selections we get to make, but we're moving up to 20. And best of all, we get to keep pick 28 as well. So let's do that. Let's see if Dallas actually takes it, first of all. They did. Let's resume the draft and let's see what that brings us. We now have 2 first-round picks. I hate to laugh here, but the simulator, it has now the Cowboys offering us back pick 38, 59, 59 and 176. Okay, again, I'm shopping for offensive linemen, but just so if you're wanting to know what else is out there, some interesting stuff here, okay? Keldrick Faulk, good defensive player. We don't necessarily have to have that. If we were looking for another defensive back, and in my opinion, we are, Avion Terrell, I'm not as high on him as this, but again, this is a guy that we could add into the secondary, add into this defense. He plays with a lot of attitude and he has a lot of athleticism. And I think he would fit in very well here, even though I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. So just something to keep in mind. Spencer Fano in this situation is still sitting there. All right, still sitting there at pick 20. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to pretend like it didn't happen, but just realize that some simulations have him still sitting there at 20. The guy I'm going to go for here is Vega Iwane. Okay, 6'4", 320. I don't like his pass blocking as good as I wish I did, but the run blocking is really good, and the pass blocking isn't bad. It's just not as good as I want it to be for a guy here in the first round. But the talent level alone that Iwane illustrates is worth it. So what we're going to do here, we're going to pick up Iwane, and then we'll just see what's sitting there at tackle at 28. Get more trade offers, which we don't need. All right. Same two guys that we saw in the other simulation, Blake Miller, Max Ionature. You know how I feel about that. I won't keep banging that one. Offensive guard sitting there, and our centers are still sitting there. And again, they like Hecht better here than Blue. I don't think most sites have that, but they do. Real quick, best player available check. Caleb Banks still sitting there. You know, I like him. KC Concepcion. If we didn't have so darn many wide receivers, some of which I really like, I'd go after Concepcion in a heartbeat. One guy worth considering right here is CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. Excellent run stopper, very athletic, physical, works fairly well in pass coverage. I don't think he's a savant in pass coverage, but he does work well. And I didn't see anything in terms of him being able to get the quarterback. But I saw solid offensive pass coverage abilities and excellent run stopping abilities. So that's really someone to consider right here. But again, offensive line needs are so great. Let's take Ionature. Two offensive linemen again. That's been a theme for me. Not an accident, on purpose. It's what I'm trying to get here. There's a part of me that's tempted to go ahead and take Sam Hecht right here. And what does that leave for Blake Fisher? Right? It's a question. Grayson Halton sitting right here, defensive tackle. That would not be a bad pick out of Oklahoma. Let's explore defensive tackle here. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm gonna come back to defensive tackle in just a second, but just so you know what else is out here, there's some good edges. DDS, I think, is still underrated, but we don't need edges per se. Jake Golday. Jake Golday is a man's man. Y'all would enjoy having Golday on the team. CBs and safeties. Real quick, check on the offensive side of the football. Good receivers here. Good tight end. Eli Stowers, good tight end. Okay, let's get back to the defense. Let's get back to the defensive tackle. Okay. There's two guys sitting here. I'm not going to pick Daryl Jackson this time. Grayson Halton is a good defensive tackle coming out of Oklahoma. Dominic Orange is a good defensive tackle coming out of Iowa State. Dominic Orange, a little bit shorter, 6'2". We got the really good size at 322. Tough to move out of the middle. And Grayson Halton coming in lighter, but you're going to expect more diversified play out of him. I'd be totally fine with either of these defensive tackles. Grayson Halton, Dominic Orange, either guy. May not even be sitting here. Both these guys could possibly be gone by pick 69 in the real draft. But Grayson Halton, Dominic Orange, totally happy with either guy. I'm going to pick Grayson Halton. It's going to help out our defensive tackle situation. Still got 145, 151, 166, and 203. Again, we have fewer picks because we traded up to 20 and we were able to keep our other first round pick. That is interesting that was able to work out. All right, here's what we got. Looking for needs here. Well, let's quit doing that. Let's look for needs. I don't always look for needs. Usually I'm best player available. I really would love to add a cornerback here on this section. Yeah, let's do it. I'll check safety real quick here. All right, Dalen Everett coming out of Georgia. 982 RAS score, 6'1", 196. Physical, all the Georgia guys are. Athletic, all the Georgia guys are. So we're more than happy to have him. Not the greatest one-on-one cover guy, but certainly can work in that area and has the ability, I think, to move around a little bit if you want him to, which I keep mentioning that for the Houston Texans. I think they could use a guy that can move around a little bit, help them out. So that's what we're going to do here at that. Dalen Everett coming out of Georgia. All right, so let me do a real quick check here. I've got two offensive linemen, which I wanted. I don't have my linebacker yet. I've got offensive tackle. I've got defensive tackle. I have a flex defensive back. Let me go look at linebacker. Several guys here. I think we added Elarms or in the other one. Kelly and Barton, both very much worth looking at. Anything here on offense? Hmm. I'm tempted to do it, y'all. I'm tempted to go ahead and just grab Jake Slaughter for the heck of it, and he'd be more like a pipeline pick, right? And you know, it would allow us to decide what we want to do with Blake Fisher. And if Jake Slaughter has to sit, then that's fine. Let's do it. Jake Slaughter, 6'5", 303, a little bit on the leaner side, but very intelligent. You talk about a guy that just really, really, um, you know, really has the intelligence level he does. Not the strongest, most powerful guy for sure. That's why he's not higher, but good athleticism on the mix there as well. It's a good pipeline pick for that level. And you know what? I know we picked Elarm Zorf before. We're gonna do it again. He's sitting right there. Why not? See if they have his RAS. Yeah, he had a 971 RAS too, for those of y'all who care about those sorts of things. I I don't put too much stock in RAS. It would if I had looked at the tape, and I've looked at the tape on a lot of these guys, if I've looked at the tape and I've got him number 20 and he comes in with a great RAS, I should have already been able to tell that on tape. Okay. I shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, this guy's way more athletic than I thought. RAS would really come to play if I had a guy back in the fifth round and I hadn't yet done a lot of tape study on him. If I saw the RAS pop, then it would encourage me to go back and look at the tape. And then if I like what I see on the tape, I might move him from fifth round to third round. That's really where, and that's exactly what's happening here. Okay. So when I start talking about these RAS scores later on, one last pick here under this scenario. I can still get Rayshon Benny, and I like that. Okay. Let's do that and be done with it. What's the size on Benny again? 6'3", 298. All right. And again, I think they'll give us a draft grade. I don't really care about that, but just knowing what we got here. This one doesn't do grades. That's fine. I don't need them. All right. So in this case, we traded up 20 and kept our other first round draft pick. We got to do Vega Ione at 20. We still got to do Max Ian Nature at 28. For those of you that like Blake Miller, we could have had him at 28 as well. So keep that in mind. Grayson Halton at 69, defensive tackle. We added another defensive tackle at 203, Rashawn Benny from Michigan. We add then two more defensive players, Dalen Everett, good corner out of Georgia, Caleb Elarms or linebacker out of TCU. Probably going to be just a rotational guy for the first couple of seasons. Okay. That's not a starter. That's a rotation guy, but hopefully he can catch on and contribute. If not, oh well, that was pick 166. And then Jake Slaughter, OC from Florida. Again, I'm thrilled to add Slaughter, but it does then ask the question, well, where does Blake Miller fit in with the other guys that we drafted? Because we just took a guard, a tackle, and a center. Where does Blake Miller go from there? I don't mind the competition. I don't mind the depth here, but we'll see. Slaughter, probably not a starter in year one, I would not think. Okay. Everybody, thank you so much. This is Pro Football Enterprises. I am Ben Parker. Really enjoyed it, and I hope you'll have a great one. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.